They're like kind of
Yeah.
like little Houdinis.
Plus, it would seem to me that the more almost the bigger that it is, the more it kind of disperses the weight, spreads out, all that stuff.
Right.
All right, let's see if we're on YouTube, shall we? Gotta freaking do this sharing. Make sure we're go. Stupid the name link to say. Okay, we are edit privacy. We should, yeah, we have believe that we are, sir. Go on YouTube. I should probably turn the speaker down if we want to hear that, do we? Yapping my gums. Come on. Bloody hell, is that slow? Oh, good news. If you'd like some, we got we're actually closing in on 400 TikTok followers.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not kidding. I went on there this morning to do um to share or do the um promotional video and saw that we had I think like in the last week or so we had like 6 new followers, which is pretty cool. Exciting stuff.
Hmm.
People that I've never heard of are sharing the, and I don't say that I've never heard of them like they're not actual real people. It's just like people that I didn't recognize. They're not like friends that are doing it. The people that I've quite probably not heard of, and they're sharing. That's cool. I mean, it's nice. It's a good thing because we are our own promotional department.
Hmm. I have an I just got up to 186 followers on Instagram, so
Let's see how far I can.
not much, but I have to talk to my friend in Australia about the I guess that's going to be
The other thing that we don't want to talk about right now.
well, yeah,
Okay, that's
that project, the project that we
correct.
were
The other
talking, yeah,
project.
probably we were talking about the other night, but
Yeah, the other. All right.
yeah, the project, I know.
It's,
I'll just call it the project
yeah, it's
because it is a
because it is.
project.
Yes, yes, that's exactly correct. We're calling it that because it is one
Yes.
properly.
But yeah, I have to talk to him about um he he said he had a conduit to America, so he's on Spotify, and I'm like, I wonder how that would work for the other project that we're gonna do. So I have to talk to him. I have to talk to Mac. I might have to have like a Zoom between you guys and we'll talk about it and
Well, I would
see.
assume, and am um uh, conceding that that is an assumption, which is not always a good thing. That we would have to pay to post there, same way that you have to pay to post on iTunes. I didn't get stopped at all in my group sharing. Something's really wrong with that. Holy heck, kids, it's 6:02. What do you say we have a program here? Oh my goodness. Hey, turn the sound down on the other devices, you nut job. Then you don't bleed over. It's like you're a rookie here. Hang on. My God. Are we having fun yet? Let's have a show, shall we? 3, 2.
Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through, but not so doggone seasoned that he won't try something new? A man who's old enough to know to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. Do you want a man with spirit who is not afraid to fight? So that he will fight for his right. A loyal man who brings a job a fresh new point of view. Well, it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. And do you deny to any man the right he's guaranteed to be elected president, no matter what his creed? It's to which we must be true. No, it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. Do you like a man who answers straight, a man who's always fair? We'll measure him against the others, and when you compare, you cast your vote for Kennedy and the change that's over too. So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you.
Welcome from my humble second bedroom here in the Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, part of these United States, North American continent, Western Hemisphere, on this planet Earth, the only one we have. Third rock from the sun in the Terran solar system, part of the Milky Way galaxy. This is the Kennedy Effect for February 25th, 2024. I spend entirely too much time at the beginning of every program with you talking about how fast this year is going, and too bad I'm going to do it again because our plan, of course, is to be with you a week from today. It will be March, a week from today. That'll be March 3rd. February, next Friday, this coming Friday, is already March 1st. It is amazing how quickly this year is going. It is only going to go quicker. I have a feeling that this is going to be such a busy, packed, quote unquote, news year between the election, the trials, war. We'll be talking about the war throughout the program today, that it's just going to be a very, very quick year. Many moons ago, when I was a much younger, less wise, and sure as heck less mature person than I am now, A friend of mine once told me that the older you get, every day is Monday. Certainly looking that's certainly looking that way. It certainly does feel that way, that's for sure. George is here with us. It's always a better and more comfortable program for me when George is here. We're thrilled that he's here. And welcome to all of you, wherever you might be on Facebook. A really cool thing happened just a moment ago, in that I was allowed to share the program everywhere in one shot. I did not get stopped. We have shared the program to, my goodness gracious, 120 places this week. I don't exactly know how that happened, but apparently we did. 115 here on my own personal timeline, 5 more over at that other side of information. That last time I did the complicated algebraic maths is 120. So pretty darn good. I'll take it. 120 places we have shared the program to this particular week. So welcome to all of you. Let me again, in an extremely repetitive way, say to you all, to every single one of you in every single group, large, small, here in PA based, Oregon based, Massachusetts, DC based, and anywhere across the country, large and small, private, public, one administrator or a dozen. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for allowing us to be part of your corner of the Facebook universe. We appreciate it very, very, very much. And it is the lifeblood of our program. Although we are on a variety of social media resources, it really is Facebook that seems to drive the thing. So we appreciate you very much. We appreciate you allowing us to be there. It just means everything to us. We couldn't do it without you. I say it every week. We could not be here if you are not there. So wherever you are on Facebook, to any of the 120 places we have shared the program, and I think that might be a new record. Thank you, and thank you. Stay right there. Watch right there. If that's how you wish to take it in, and if you happen to be catching us right now on a recording, stay right there. However, I'd like to give you the option to come to my own personal Facebook, Jeff Kennedy. Name's right there on the screen. Super easy to see. It's right there in Georgia Square as well. That's where I will see you. I can say hello to you, welcome you, take your comments, take your questions, ask me a question. What a great opportunity just to ask me a question tonight. Tell me I suck. Tell me you enjoy the program. Tell me to get a better haircut, wear a different t-shirt, do something better with the background. Tell me you love everything that we do, or anything in between. This is the opportunity. It's just you and us tonight. All of us here and all of you there. I'll get into that in just a couple of minutes. So thank you to everyone on Facebook. You can come to my own personal timeline, Jeff Kennedy. That's where I'll see everything, comments, questions, and so on. You can also go to our home group Facebook page, That Other Side of Information. It is all things surrounding our program, and especially the news items that we post all week. And I'm not the only one there that posts. We have several members that post there. George puts things up there. Kristen will put things up there. It's not just me shoving my news items down your throat. We're all there. And anytime that we are not on the air, our Facebook page is always there to be referenced and looked at. And even if it's, again, I think I've said this an awful lot of times, if you're not of our own political persuasion here, maybe you don't agree with me on any of these issues, doesn't matter. You are welcome here. You are welcome here. And I hope that you'll check out the Facebook page. I hope you'll become a member of it. Membership at the Facebook page has gotten a little static. Slowed down a little bit in the mud, but that's okay. I actually went through and invited a whole new group of people, and that's okay. It happens. It's not, I'm not losing sleep over it, but it would be, there's about 1,200 people there. Do I wish it was 12,000, 120,000, 120 million? Of course I do. But that's not going to happen anytime soon. So I invite people every week, and I hope you'll check it out and become a member of us as well. So my own personal timeline, Jeff Kennedy, the other side of information, you can watch the program, watch us live right there. Send us your comments and questions. Our hot101.net, our name is our web address, hot101.net, but you do not need to go to the main website to listen. Use the apps, Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and the Tune In Radio app. Great thing. Listen, honestly, great thing about the hot101.net apps. No registration, no fee, no credit card number, no login, no new password that you're going to forget about 10 seconds after you make it, like I do all the time. No fingerprint, no retina scan, blood sample, give up your firstborn, nothing of the sort. You download it for free, you tap it, it opens, you're listening. Period. It's that simple. And it's there 24/7 all around our humble planet Earth and above planet Earth. You can get hot101.net. If you can connect to the internet anywhere on this planet, you can listen to hot101.net. And the numbers that hot101.net has brought in tell me that you are listening literally around the globe. And we are extremely grateful for you doing so. We could not be here if you are not there. So Apple App Store, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio app. You can listen on desktops, laptops, tablets, phones, Bluetooth it to speakers, earbuds, Bluetooth it in the car. We always listen. Everybody listens to the radio in the car. Don't tell me you don't. You do. You listen to something in the car. You can Bluetooth hot101.net right through your car speakers. Great time to listen, especially if you have any sizable commute or if you're making a trip somewhere. Turn it on. You never have to change it. Listen and enjoy. Proud to be part of the TCP Media Group from Lancaster, PA. And of course, our lone sponsor, the Pay Give app, a financial transaction app. Financial transaction apps make their money by taking a fee of the transactions that you do there. Well, PayGive does the same thing, to be perfectly blunt, but here's the big difference. You can designate a percentage of that fee to go to a charity of your choice. Children's charities, veterans charities, health-related charities like the American Heart Association, American Cancer Institute, and on, and animal charities. I would like to stump personally for the animal charities. Humans have a lot of money. We can work and make money. Animals are defenseless. I would stump for the animal charities myself, but hey, whatever you choose to do. The Pay Give app, when you buy things, you have to pay for them. Why not give while you do it? 6:15, we're just getting started, so let's get into the program. If you saw the header for the Facebook post, you will see, actually, wait, I'm going to back up 1 second. Let me say good evening, thank you, and welcome, and hallelujah that you're here to my dear friend George. Welcome, sir, because I should not wait till the last 2 minutes of the program to talk to you. So hello and welcome.
Thank you, sir. Good evening.
Well
Good
said,
evening,
sir.
everyone.
Well said, sir.
I'm gonna shut up.
Yeah. Want to expand on that? No, I'm just. Let me get into the header of the program. So last week, we had a very honored, esteemed guest scheduled to be here with us. And earlier that day, they backed out. And again, as angry as I was about it, as angry as I continue to be about it, they had every right in the world to make that decision. That's America. It's freedom. You can do what you wish as long as it doesn't hurt and you want to break the law. You can not do what you wish. So fine with that. Perfectly fine. It's okay. It bothers me, clearly. Still bothers me, clearly. Bothered me last week, absolutely. That said, they have every right in the world to make that decision. Now, I have told you before that being here with you, being behind this microphone, staring into this camera, talking to and with you, because I much prefer to talk with you than I do to talk at you. This is your program. My name is on it, but it's our program. We are a program family. Those that work on the program, those that have to suffer with me working on the program, and you all listening out there, we are one big family. So I have active invitations, open active invitations to probably 30 different people, all of which have said, of course, we would love to be on your program. What's a good date? And then I proceed to give them a series of dates. And then I tell them all the very same thing. You are joining us. You are doing us a favor because we do not pay anybody to be here, because we cannot pay anybody to be here, because we don't have that kind of cash laying around. So anybody that comes here to be a guest is doing us a favor. They are, as far as I'm concerned, they are donating their time. So I will then write back and say, this Sunday is great. This one, this one, this one, this one. Okay, great. Let me get with my staff. Let me get with my scheduler. Let me get with the family. Let me check my calendar. And all of which makes perfect sense. And then I never seem to hear from them again. And I will write back. You mentioned that you would be willing to come on the program. I sent you a series of dates. Are you still willing to come to the program? And then that about 30 people tends to dwindle to maybe 15 or 10. Of course we are. Sorry, we're busy here. Maybe somebody got sick, had COVID, kids, school, all that. And that's all fine. Life happens. I get it. The same way that I've had to cancel some programs throughout the course of our 5 years here because I got sick. Or I know I've canceled, I think, 2 programs because I got migraine headaches so bad I couldn't even function. I couldn't move. Couldn't eat, couldn't drink, couldn't stand, couldn't sit, couldn't do nothing. So couldn't do anything, you should say, grammatically. And that's fine too. But what I decided last week was kind of a breaking point, that even though every single human being, every single person who comes on this program is giving of their time, and I will never look at it any other way, it is the worst part of this program, is begging people to be on this program. So I have decided that I simply will not do it anymore. I will continue to invite people, and lots of them. I will continue to invite candidates and elected officials and clergy and authors and professors and scientists and comedians and TikTok stars and other radio hosts, friends, all of it. But I won't beg them, and I'm not going to pester them to death with 4, 5, 6, 10 reminders. You said you would be on when? And if that means shorter programs, which you probably all would be cheering at this point, because, oh, he's going to shut up and give us our nights back. Or if it means that we just talk to each other, then that's what's going to happen. Every single elected official in this Commonwealth at one time or another has been invited on this program from both parties. Elected officials from probably half the states in the union have been invited on this program. National figures, local figures. I've invited authors, clergy, scientists, several other radio hosts. I continue to try to get a mental health expert on here from the local mental health advocacy group, I guess is the right word for them. Kristen will probably correct me, as she should. they've been stringing me out a bit because I want to talk. I think it's a very important subject to talk about, the not just the continuing growing mental health crisis in this country, but how mental health is not treated as health. It's treated as something kind of different. It still seems to have a lot of stigma attached to it. So I will continue to be inviting people on this program. And if you have people that you think I should invite on this program, you can tell me. So many of you have been so giving and grateful to say, I have a friend who wrote a book. I have a friend running for office. I have a friend who is in the clergy or works on this, that, the other. I continue to be open to hear about all of that. I just decided I'm not going to beg and beg and beg and beg people who've told me yes, but then never give me a date. That's all I'm trying to say. I hope we have guests on this program every time I flip the switch and we talk on with you together on this program, but I can't keep begging people. When I began the program, we reached about 1,200 people, about the size of our own Facebook group. We now reach 500,000. So something's going right. And find me a candidate who doesn't want to talk to 500,000 people. Find me a business who doesn't want to advertise to 500,000 people. But that's a different topic for a different day. So that's why there's no guests tonight. Open invitation to literally dozens of them. No one took it. So it's just you and us. Great night to ask me a question. And you know what? I'll take your questions on anything. Why do I do this? Why do you have so much white hair? Why have you gained so much weight? Why don't you shave? What do you think about the war? What do you think about the economy? What do you think about anything? I'll take it. Let's talk to each other. Phone line is already on the screen twice. It's in my box and it's in the graphic that George is posting at the moment. George is actually keeping his mic open, so we will talk to each other, or at least. Are you keeping your mic open? Oh, no. You know, it's very interesting, George. I just realized this. On the Zoom screen, it says you're muted, but on Facebook, it says you're not. It's kind of interesting. I don't exactly know why that's happening. It has something to do with the way Zoom is going out into the universe.
Probably because
Yes.
you're at a Facebook prison. I don't know.
I'm mad at you. I'm not. I don't have any guests, so they decided not to put me in prison. They're feeling sorry for me. You know, we'll let him share everywhere he wants to go. Let's see how long he can talk without taking a breath or before he has to get the hell out of the chair. But yeah, so that's the story of why we have no guests. Hopefully it doesn't bother you. It's just us this evening. I will take your questions. I'll take your comments. God knows I'll take your phone calls. So let's get to it. So you can't quite see it. And I don't want to bore you. Before COVID, I had a job for 17 years. I worked with the same company. And we rented and sold. I was a salesperson, shockingly. Shockingly, the guy that hates to talk, wink, 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 on the radio and television all the time. I mean, television is a euphemism for the video output of the program. I used to sell walkie-talkies, two-way radios. And one of the places that we used to rent radios to every summer was a Ukrainian scout camp in upstate New York, where the camp itself was in upstate New York. The kids would come from Jersey, New York. They came from all over the tri-state, what we call the tri-state area in New Jersey, the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area. And they had a camp in upstate New York, and it was a Ukrainian scout camp. And every year they put t-shirts. And at the end of the summer, when they would return the radios, they would always bring us free t-shirts. And, everybody loves free. And I put this on this morning as like a PJ sort of house loungy t-shirt. And I thought to myself as I was going through the day that one of the things I was very much going to have to talk to you about tonight is that we have reached and just passed. I think it was Friday was the anniversary we have entered the third year, 2 full years in the books of the Russian invasion of Ukraine and subsequent war. The first ground war in Europe since the secession, since VE Day in 1945. So that war is now in its third year. They have entered their third year. 2 full years in the books. So I'm wearing my Ukrainian scout camp shirt. And fortunately, on camera, it actually doesn't look half bad. I assure you, there's a lot of dog hair. And there might even be a couple of holes or something. I kind of use it as a PJ shirt, but it occurred to me as I had it on, this would be a good, I might as well just, as I was getting ready for the program, trying to decide how do I make myself look a little more decent, thought, well, I should change my shirt. I should do, and then I looked at it in the mirror and thought, well, it's a Ukrainian shirt. I'm going to keep it on. I have to talk about the war. Anyway, so let's talk war. I think I would like to. So we talk a lot about history on this program. I would like to ask you, my audience, the audience part of this program family, to kind of close your eyes, if you will, if not figuratively, if not literally, maybe abstractly, just kind of close your eyes and think back to a time not too terribly long ago when there were 2 functioning political parties in this country. 2 major functioning political parties. There's actually there's scores of political parties in this country. We don't always think of it that way. But there are. There's a good handful of political parties in this country. They're simply not national. They're not well known. For those of us here in Pennsylvania, Working Families is a fully functional political party here in Pennsylvania. The liberal and conservative parties are 2 additional parties that function quite healthily. They're healthy, functioning political parties in New York State. Very often you'll hear the Republican and Democratic candidates will seek the nominations of the liberal party, he tried to say, and the conservative parties. There are other states, Massachusetts, I believe, is one of them, where the Green Party is a fully functioning political party. In Seattle, I don't know if about Washington State wholly, the Democratic Socialist Party is a fully functional, full-fledged political party. But only 2 of them remain to be fully functional nationwide. And only 1 is actually doing anything. And that would be my party, the Democratic Party. So I would like you to think back, if you would, to a time when there were 2 functioning political parties nationwide. My Democratic Party, it's yours too, but the party I belong to, and the former political party known as Republicans. Mr. Reagan was swept into office running on what used to be very basic foundational tenets of the Republican Party, including a very strong national defense, very anti-fascist, anti-communist, even though those things are on different ends of the scale of the political spectrum, and the promotion of democracies and democracy, small d, throughout the globe. It wasn't that long ago, but the former political party known as Republicans no longer feel that way. And how do we know this? Well, it brings us back to the third anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And the fact that the former political party known as Republicans have now decided, I think in no small coincidence to the massive social media campaign that the president of Russia himself has admitted is underway, plus the nearly $90 million that was funneled of Russian money that was funneled through the NRA to Republican candidates. The former political party known as Republicans has decided that a democracy, albeit a young, fledgling, and pretty flawed democracy like Ukraine, doesn't need to exist anymore because Mr. Putin has told them it doesn't need to exist anymore. You may have noticed, and I will not try to pronounce the name of the town because I will butcher it brutally. George will find it. He'll put it in the chat for me, and maybe I'll take a swing at it, but I will brutalize the name because it's a very thick Eastern European name, as I recall. I think it starts with a V. The fact that the Ukrainians had to, you may have seen this week that the Ukrainians had to pull out of a town that they were defending nearly to the last of them. And they had to, and I think the American media did a very, very poor job of properly explaining why they had to pull out of that town. And the reason that they had to do that was not a lack of manpower, not even because they had solid or lacked solid defensive positions. They had to pull out because they were running out of ammunition. And they literally were rationing, counting every bullet. And that instead of just, if you've watched old war films, you'll see, you know, the soldier with the .50 caliber will just lay down blanket fire and not necessarily even fire at any one individual, but at a hedgerow or at a trench or at a line. The Ukrainians can't do that. They're running out of ammunition. And the countries that continue to supply munitions to them, the Brits, Canadians, French, Germans, Swedes, and the Finns, even the Italians, if I'm not mistaken, the Poles, simply cannot supply it to them fast enough. Remember, the United States spends over $800 billion a year on national defense out of a total national budget of roughly 1.6 trillion. 50% of what we spend is on defense. Now, here's what's interesting. Bernie Sanders would tell you that real dollar amount is more in the $1.2 trillion range, given the suppliers, vendors, and so on that are not directly connected to the defense budget, but might be a step or two removed. A company that supplies something to a company that supplies something to the Defense Department, or a company that supplies something to a company that supplies to another company that supplies to the defense. So Bernie Sanders would tell you that real budget is 1.2, 1.4 trillion per year. If the Ukrainians are going to be able to continue to arm themselves without concern, it's going to have to come from the United States. George is telling, oh, I got it really wrong, didn't I? I thought I said it started with a V. It couldn't have been even. Avdivka is what George is telling me was the name of the town. And he even spelled it phonetically, which is very nice of him to do because I couldn't pronounce it clearly by listening to me or watching me try to read it and spell it out in my own head. So that said, the Ukrainians were forced to pull back from Avdiivka this week. And I think the American press did a very poor job of explaining why. Instead, it was generally speaking, not every source, but generally speaking, I think if you interviewed the quote unquote man on the street, person on the street, why did the Ukrainians have to pull out of this town? They would tell you that the Russians pushed them out of that town or that they lost the town. Where it appears that the truth is from other media sources, as well as sources inside the Defense Department and the administration and former Defense Department officials, that the Ukrainians were forced to leave it because they simply didn't have the ammunition to try to fight to keep it. Now, so where am I going with all of this? Remember what I said not too long ago. Remember the former political party known as Republicans. And three of the very basic tenets of the Republican Party, or at least what they used to tell you was the basic tenets of the Republican Party: strong national defense, anti-communist, anti-fascist, again, even though those are on different ends of the political spectrum, and the promotion of small d democracy around the globe. This incarnation of the Republican, or at least people who call themselves Republicans, it's not a functioning political party anymore. They believe in none of it. None. The short-sightedness of it is staggering. I don't think this is simply a soundbite or a talking point or a poke at a political opponent. I happen to think that it's a very logical argument. And it is this, or a logical argument for why we should be funding the Ukrainians essentially without end. With oversight, for sure, but that we shouldn't have to keep debating over and over and over again whether to back them. Is that the Ukrainians themselves, from the lowest level private up to President Zelensky himself, has said, we do not want your troops in our country. They don't want Polish troops, Lithuanians, French, Germans. They don't want any NATO troops in their country. They have told the globe, Russia included, we will carry this fight. This is our fight. They invaded our soil. And we will fight them. But we need the arms to do it. So we must then ask ourselves as a population here in this country, do we give them the wherewithal to do exactly that? To do what they've been doing for 2 years? Or do we abandon them? Let Russia pick its next target, which, by the way, will end up being a NATO country, and then test the resolve of the American people and government. Will we honor Article 5 of the NATO treaty? An attack on one is an attack on all. Putin's prime minister, Medvedev, who actually served as president for 4 years before Putin was able to change the Russian constitution yet again so that he could continually run for president, Medvedev served as president and Putin served as prime minister for a 4-year period. Medvedev told news outlets rather calmly, matter-of-factly, that, yeah, they're probably going to invade Poland next. After they take Ukraine, they'll just invade Poland next. So we, as an American government and as a population, have to decide, do we continue to give the Ukrainians the wherewithal to defend themselves, or do you want to see 2 million plus American troops on European soil defending Poland? Because if Russia invades a NATO country, not only are we obligated by treaty, it's not exactly just going to be 100, 200, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 troops that are going to go. There will be millions. It will be a third world war. As NATO countries stretch, Canada's in NATO. Iceland, Greenland, the Baltics, the Scandinavian countries, the lowland countries, Belgium, Netherlands, Mediterranean countries, Turkey is in NATO. It will be a world war. Now, do I believe that the Ukrainians will eventually take back all of the territory the Russians have taken so far? I do not. Quite honestly, I think they will run out of men to do it. The population of Ukraine is nowhere near the population of Russia. For that part of the attrition battle, I think the Ukrainians are in bad shape. My guess is they will have to concede most, if not all, of the territory that the Russians have taken so far. Does that mean that we should give up on them? No. Because at least 80% of Ukraine can continue to exist. Mr. Putin invaded Ukraine because he does not believe it is a sovereign nation. He believes it is part of the Soviet Union. He especially invaded those eastern parts of Ukraine because they are largely ethnically Russian. Sounds very familiar, doesn't it? The Rhineland, Czechoslovakia, Austria. When the Germans took back territory that they signed away by treaty after World War I. And when Hitler invaded them and said, I'm taking this land back to protect the ethnic German population. It sounds very familiar when Mr. Putin says, I'm invading to protect the ethnically Russian population. But what Americans have to decide is, do we allow such a thing? Or do we do what the Ukrainians are begging us to do? Just give us the weapons and we will fight. And that's all they have done so far, is fight bravely without any care for sacrifice. They have simply fought and fought and fought. And they have stopped what was perceived to be the second greatest military on the, well, second or third greatest military on the planet. And they have made that military look very ordinary. There has been plenty of intelligence to come out of Russia to tell us that Mr. Putin thought he would take the Ukraine within weeks. At worst, within weeks. We're now 2 years in, and there has been no significant territorial changes. There have been territorial changes. Has not been significant territorial changes since the initial months of the war. It has turned into a stalemate. It has very much turned into the French countryside in 1918. But do we abandon them? Do we abandon them? Do we as a population look at the former political party known as Republicans and ask ourselves, what happened to you lot? You were the strong national defense party. You were the party that used to say that Democrats were weak on national defense and weak against communism. Now the Republicans in the House of Representatives won't even allow a vote on an aid package to Ukraine. An aid package that a majority of Republicans in the Senate support and supported by voting for it. Ironically, Republicans that didn't receive any laundered Russian money in their campaigns. So who are we? Who are we as a people? Well, the Democratic caucus in the House, with the help of a few Republicans, are trying to force a vote on this aid package. They're trying to make an end run around Speaker Johnson and use something called a discharge petition. That if enough members of the House sign it, the vote will happen whether Speaker Johnson wants it to happen or not. Common wisdom from both the media and members of the House themselves, as well as their staffs, is saying over 300 members are going to vote for this. The package will go through rather simply if the Speaker would allow a vote. Now, why would the Speaker of the House of the United States House of Representatives stop a vote on a bill that he has been told will pass and pass easily and pass in a bipartisan way? Why would he not listen to his members, his caucus, instead of listen to the directives, whispers, if not flat out directives, coming to him from the invading country in Ukraine? One must wonder. Generally speaking, the answer is usually follow the money. Do I think that Putin's Russia has put millions of dollars into Speaker Johnson's pocket? No. But they may have contributed money to his campaign 2 years ago, 4 years ago. We know they spent just shy of $100 million, laundered just shy of $100 million through the NRA in 2020 and 2016. What happened to the Republicans who were strong on national defense and virulently anti-communist, anti-fascist? What happened to that political party? It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist anymore. I don't think the Republican Party, generally speaking, exists anymore. I think a group of nut jobs who calls themselves Republicans exists. But as far as it being a functioning, active, contributing, governing political party, those days are over. And it's not good for small d democracy. Even though I am proud to say that my party, the Democratic Party, as flawed as it is, and it is, I am proud to say that we are the only ones left. that when push came to shove, when democracy itself was under the gun, literally, that when tens of thousands stormed the Capitol to end the American experiment, it was our party that stood up against it. That it's our party that wants people to vote. We want 2024 to be just the next in a series of elections throughout the entire future of the American experiment. The other party hopes it's the last and seems to be working in that direction. What happened to the Republican Party that was strong on national defense when their would-be presidential nominee, the 4 times indicted, 91 count indicted, twice impeached eventual nominee, says in repeated interviews that he would encourage Russia to invade NATO countries because he intends to do nothing about it. That's the Republican Party? That's Reagan's Republican Party? George H.W. Bush's Republican Party? George W. Bush loved war so much, he fought an illegal one. Is that Eisenhower's political party, who fought the Korean War to stop communism and laid the groundwork for the Vietnam War? This isn't a functioning political party anymore. It is a group of individuals who use the name Republican, but that do the bidding of foreign powers to get rich. They run for office to get rich. They like the attention and they like the money. Power and money are nearly interchangeable now. There's a dish, many former congressmen have talked about the dish at the front door of any congressional office. Drop your envelope here, then you may enter. I've talked to you repeatedly, probably not in quite a while, come to think of it, so I'll remind you of it. It was a study that was done, trying to remember, I believe it was Princeton. I think it was a Princeton University study. I hope I have that right. That if you are in the economic top 10% in this country and you support a particular policy initiative, you have about an 80% chance of seeing it through to become law. If you're in that middle, say 40%, from the 90th percentile down to the 50th percentile, and you have a certain policy position that you are fighting for, you have about a 50% chance of seeing it become law. If you're in the poorest 50% of the country, you have about a 10% chance of seeing something that you advocate for become law. Ever since the Supreme Court legalized bribery and the outright and open ownership of political officials in this country, we've seen the disintegration of the Republican Party. And too many Democrats, by the way, willing to cash in. But at least we're still trying to govern somewhat. I don't agree with all of it either. And goodness knows my party is not perfect. We are the only ones trying. We're the only national 50-state, every town, every county party left that's trying. The Democratic Socialists in Washington State are trying really hard too, and they're succeeding in great measure. Working Families Party here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is working damn hard too, and they're succeeding in good measure. They're not national. the way that the Democrats and formerly Republicans are. When it comes to this war, we do have to ask ourselves, do we pay the cost of money and armaments? Do we pay that cost now? Or do we pay the cost in American blood a year from now, 2 years from now, 5, 10? The wild card in all this is, in my opinion, not the American presidential election. Now, there's a presidential election coming up in Russia in the next few weeks, I believe. Might even be only about 2 weeks from now, but I think it's in the next several weeks. There is a gentleman that Mr. Putin himself picked to run as opposition to him, thus giving the impression of a legitimate election. He was a mayor of a small city that the West had commonly perceived as a very ardent Putin ally. And Putin handpicked him to run for president so that at least there would be another name on the ballot. And then a very strange thing happened. This gentleman began to campaign like a legitimate presidential candidate. He began to campaign. And his rallies were very, very well attended. One of them had upwards of 130,000 people. And the gentleman began to make public speeches. And George will find his name for me as well because it's escaping me. And in those public speeches, he said, we have to end this illegal war. And then he became even more popular. And then Putin used the courts in Russia that he himself has stacked and filled with loyalists, handpicked, and he used the courts to have this gentleman's candidacy stricken from the ballot. A hand-picked Putin puppet to run against him for show, who actually became so popular that he became a threat to Putin himself. So he used the courts to get him off the ballot. Does that sound like a stable and strong leader? Does it sound like someone who's secure in his position and positions, policies, what he believes in, what he's done for the country, his record? George tells me I'm never going to be able to pronounce that. Boris Nadezhin. And I'm sure I got that wrong. I'm butchering the gentleman's name. Not that he's listening or ever probably going to hear this, but I'm butchering that pretty badly. 7 p.m. entering our second hour of the Kennedy Effect for the 25th of February, 2024. It's just you and us for as long as we can take it. The Villain's View comes your way live at 9 p.m. on hot101.net. Also, I share it onto our Facebook group, That Other Side of Information, so you can watch it there as well. Listen to the audio on hot101.net. That is at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. For now, you are into the second hour of the Kennedy Effect for the 25th of February, 2024. We have shared the program to 120 different places across the Facebook universe, and we are exceptionally grateful to every single one of you who have allowed us to do that. The number of groups who allow us to share into it each week seems to be growing. that the acceptance of which seems to be quicker and quicker and quicker. When I sit down on a Friday night or a Saturday morning to do the sharing of the announcement to say, hey, we're coming back, tune us in, the number of groups and folks, individuals and administrators throughout these groups who very, very quickly just yep, approved. You can see that. Yes, yes, yes. Continues to grow. It's very, very gratifying. It's very humbling. And we appreciate it very, 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 very much to all the individuals who have shared our program across Facebook themselves, to every group, large, small, public, private, local, regional, global, that has allowed us to be part of your corner of the Facebook universe. We thank you, thank you, thank you very much. You can watch us live right now, any of those places. If you would like your questions or comments seen and then discussed, answered, and so on, please come to my own personal Facebook timeline, Jeff Kennedy. It's right there on the screen, right in the bottom left-hand corner of my Zoom box. Come to my personal Facebook. You'll see it there. And of course, please, 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 please check out our Facebook group, That Other Side of Information. If you have missed any of our first hour, or if you ever miss any of our programs, portions of it, or the whole thing, you can go to youtube.com/That Other Side of Information. We try to keep it simple and keep everything named the same. That Other Side of Information, YouTube and Facebook. Hot101.net, our name is our web address, hot101.net. You do not need to listen there. You can also use the apps, Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and the TuneIn radio app. If you can connect to the internet anywhere on, above, or below planet Earth, you can listen to us, period, 24/7, and you should be doing exactly that. If you think that we have any talent doing this talk show, real talent is when you hear the music. Check it out 24/7 everywhere around the globe. Listen on your desktops, your laptops, your tablets, your phone. Bluetooth it to earbuds, earphones, speakers. Bluetooth it in the car. That's a great place. Everybody listens to the radio in their car. You might think or say that you don't. You do. You do. Hot 101 is a great thing to Bluetooth through your own car speakers. TCP Media Group out of Lancaster, PA, and of course our sponsor, the PayGive app. When you buy things, you have to pay for them. Why not give while you do it? Paygive.org and the PayGive app. Before I move on from the Russia topic, I think I would be doing quite a disservice if I did not mention that within the last 10 days or so, 2 weeks maybe, there has been a rash of new assassinations originating from Russia. While the world knows that Mr. Putin has finally killed Alexei Navalny, I suspect feeling a new sense of both urgency and confidence in his position, that he is winning in Ukraine. And I think he can almost justifiably say that he's winning because of the stalemate. He's no longer losing. And because the Republicans in the United States are pissing about giving Ukraine more aid. And my guess, and these are only guesses. I mean, you can only read the news, watch the news, try to get as many different sources as you can and see what the collective agreements and crossovers is in these various stories. But it appears within the last several weeks, Mr. Putin is extremely confident, damn near buoyant. But he's arranged a series of assassinations around the globe in the last couple weeks. We all know about Navalny, a man who probably, if given a fair chance, an even fair chance to run for president, would be successful. All indications were that he would be successful. and that he would be able to change the course of Russia. We know Putin finally killed him, finally felt himself in a confident enough position that he could pull the trigger figuratively and finally kill Navalny. Now, there's a young man who was and I didn't know about this story. And I didn't know about this story. I actually learned this particular story from Morning Joe, of all places. I mean, they do a lot of talking on Morning Joe, and I do find the conversations at times very fascinating. I learn from them. Sometimes I find them extremely pedantic and very predictable. But this story I happened to hear on Morning Joe, and I knew nothing of it. And perhaps one of these weeks, if I can ever get yet another person who's promised to be here and hasn't done it yet, to really talk about the state of the American media. The fact that the only place I heard this was on Morning Joe is quite disappointing. Now, it doesn't mean that NPR didn't do stories on it, or Reuters, or the American Associated Press, which I would like to plug, by the way, the Associated Press app, which I now use an awful lot more since the Guardian app has turned into a pay app. The Associated Press app is still free. I haven't seen this anywhere else. And George, again, will have to find the young man's name if he's capable. I don't remember his name. So the Americans have a very, very advanced attack helicopter called a Black Hawk. I think most Americans know what it looks like. We tend to be very, very familiar with our military. And we know what the stealth fighters and stealth bombers look like, and we know what we tend to know everything, about what our American military can and cannot do, or at least a great deal of it, or we certainly well know everything that they let us know. Maybe that's the best way to put that. We know quite well what we are allowed to know. Well, the Russians have an attack helicopter as well, very, very advanced. And this young man, who was a pilot for one of those helicopters, and he took his helicopter and flew it to Ukraine and defected from Russia and allowed NATO to take possession of his helicopter. Fully intact, fully operational. They didn't have to shoot it down. This young man went on to go to move deeper west through Europe, did a series of interviews with German television, French television, British television, and eventually found himself in Paris. I don't know if he was a Maxim Kuzminov, as George has found for me, a Russian pilot who dramatically defected to Ukraine by flying his helicopter across the border. And I'll get to the end of that in a moment. So Mr. Kuzminov, I believe he was 25. His family, I believe, is still in Russia. He was a helicopter pilot. It's a very advanced attack helicopter. He flew it to Ukraine, essentially gave it to NATO, defected to the West, very Soviet style, defected to the West, and continued to travel west and found himself in Paris. I do not know if he was a guest of the French government or what money he was surviving on. I have no idea, but found himself in Paris. He was found dead this week. He was poisoned. I'm sure, wink, 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 that it was accidental. Probably just ate a spoiled baguette or crepe or pastry of some kind. Oh, he was in Spain? I could have swore he was in Paris. George is correcting me left and right tonight. That's why I'm always a better host when he is here. He's correcting me left and right. He was in Spain. I had heard he was in Paris. Regardless, he was found dead this week. He was assassinated. Spanish officials said that his death was very curious and very suspect. God knows that there are 25-year-olds all over the globe who die of natural causes. This young man was a Russian trained, conditioned pilot, and he was assassinated in Spain. He flew his Mi-8 helicopter. I think I'm saying that correct. It's spelled out the way George wrote it here, Mi-8 helicopter. Ukraine last August abandoned it and encouraged his fellow countrymen to defect and not to fight. He was assassinated this week. Because goodness knows all strong leaders who are confident in their political positions, not just their political position, but their political positions, period, plural. They always assassinate the opposition, don't they? The secure ones, the really, really strong ones. I hated damn near everything about Ronald Reagan, but he didn't assassinate a bunch of Democrats. Might have wanted to, but he didn't. Randall, sir, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, but I've been cut off from watching your show.
According to George, Kristen, and myself, because I'm watching the show, both on YouTube and Facebook, everything is up and well. I don't know if you lost internet in your area.
No, because I other things are popping up on Facebook.
Hmm.
So no, it's not that. It's weird. It's just weird. It's because
It's the Russians, Randall. They're after us.
yeah, maybe. You know, when you post something and you can't share it, it's here for you. This content is available right now. When this happens, it's usually because you only share it with small group of people, change, you can see it, or it's been deleted. And again, I don't know what's going on here. I even rebooted my Kindle here, and it you know, and it came up.
Well, I
So
don't want to speak for George, but George being an IT professional, probably his ears probably perked a little bit when you said Kindle. That might be the explanation right there, to be honest with you. But all I can say is all I can say is I am up and running from my end. I just checked again, and I thank you for telling me, and I very much thank you for inquiring about it, but I am checking from my end, and I made the post public because I do have some privacy controls over my own timeline. It's not the place I want to share the program, but the free version of Restream will only let you share to your own personal Facebook, not to a group. You have to pay for that to share to a group. Eventually, when I do pay for it, because I will have to pay for it at some point to get to more places, then I can share it right to the group. But I appear to be fine, but I thank you anyway, because I'm looking at it. I know it's public. It's everywhere else. I very much appreciate you telling me, though. I truly, truly do, because I'm looking. I don't know. I'm seeing it. So there's some little gremlin out there somewhere. I completely understand. There's a gremlin out there somewhere. But anyway, I'm sure that there's stuff that you wanted to talk about. So please, sir, have at it.
Yeah, there's a bunch of things I want to talk about. Yeah, first off, it's just a travesty that the third year of Russia's invasion, aggression against Ukraine, that we've reached this point, and it's just as you talked about, it's mind-boggling that number one, that so many former Republicans that are elected in Congress, including their Speaker of the House, refuse to put up a vote on aid, military aid to the Ukraine when they are completely run out of bullets. And missiles, their cities are being firebombed by drones and rockets because they have no counter missiles left to take down the Russian drones and the Russian missiles.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all a game plan by the Russians. I mean, I don't care what he says. In my honest opinion, it's not a conspiracy theory. Trump is in the pocket of, and he has been since day one, and he will continue to be. And when he made his statement that you can take a NATO country, it's just mind-boggling because we're not going to defend you anymore under Article 5 of NATO treaty that this country has signed. It's just mind-boggling that.
Not just that we signed, but that we authored.
Well, yeah, I know we authored. I'm saying the Senate signed the treaty,
Right.
and that's the key. The Senate signing is the key word in the U.S. Constitution.
Yeah,
And,
I'm with you.
and it's obvious. Again, this is my opinion. Trump is a traitor to this country. He wants to reinstate exactly what the Republican Party then, after World War I, and the growing, all through the Depression, the growing percentage of Americans that absolutely wanted isolationism. We don't have to worry about imperial the imperial Japanese army invading sort of Asia, China, North Korea, South Korea. It was just one Korea. We don't have to worry about it. In Philippines, you don't have to worry about nothing like that. No, and the same thing. Every country in Europe except the few neutral countries like Spain, Switzerland, and Sweden were all invaded by Hitler and the Nazis. And you can't. This is exactly how we got in World War II. Isolationism, and that's what there's too many Americans, MAGA, leading the pack, all the MAGAnites, that are leading this ridiculous thing of isolationism.
Hackenites, I never heard that one before.
Dude, as you said, it's going to cause World War III. And both sides, we are, Russia and us are drilled to the hip with nukes. And how long does it take until the ultimate happens? That we came one time on this planet to happening, and that was the Cuban Missile Crisis between us and the then Soviet Union, Russia.
Hey, can I ask you a question? Because I was thinking about this week, and you lived during this time. This was before my time. I did, when I was young, actually do a few duck and cover drills. I'm a graduate of Phillipsburg High School, Phillipsburg, New Jersey. Warren County, as west in New Jersey as you can get before you cross the Delaware River into Pennsylvania, where our high school was built in the 1920s. The front half was built in the 1920s. The back half was built in 1956, I think it was. And that there were some classrooms it was built into the side of a hill. So there were some classrooms surrounded by, that were built into the hillside. They had windows on one side, but it was actually sort of the basement, if you will, of the building. But then again, it was kind of also at ground level. It just depended on how you looked at it, because the earth was kind of higher up, and because it was built in the hill. So they dug into the hill to build these basement classrooms. And those classrooms actually had the old nuclear, not the radiation symbol on them. I don't know how to describe it. that it was a fallout shelter. That if it had, right, and if Phillipsburg had ever been attacked because Ingersoll Rand was still an active industrial site, the Lehigh Valley would have been ashes within minutes because Bethlehem Steel was a target. I think Mack Trucks was a target. Ingersoll Rand was a target. So we had a fallout shelter. We had a couple duck and cover drills during the Reagan administration. And I was thinking this week of what Khrushchev said when he was premier of the Soviet Union. We tend to think of Khrushchev as the premier during Kennedy's years, but he was a bit before that and a little after that. And in an interview, and I'm going to butcher the quote. I'm not even really going to try to quote it. It will very much be a paraphrase. I'm hoping Randall will remember this. But he
said at the United Nations, "We will bear you."
He did, but he was also asked if his country could defeat the Americans in a war. He was asked straight out, "Could you defeat the Americans militarily?" And his answer was, "We will never have to, because they will defeat themselves. Because there will come a time where the only thing that they care about is money. And everything else will fall to the wayside for the relentless, endless, limitless pursuit of riches." You think we've hit that?
I absolutely think we did that.
Wait,
Because of the almost 50% risk among Americans in this country.
say that again. I lost you a little bit.
I think that's true because the country is essentially 50%, 50% on every issue, it seems like. And even though the vast majority, whether they're Democrats, whether they're Republicans, registered Republicans, whether they're independents, whether they're a small party, 90% of the people want to see the rich taxed more. But as you talked about earlier, the 1% and that goes for the military industrial complex, and that goes for the pharmaceutical industry, and it goes for healthcare insurance. And whatever they say, they get. And yes, our Congress has been bought, and there's too many Democrats in my party that have been bought. And, you know, the 2 years that the Republicans controlled the House and the Senate and the presidency, you know, January 2017 to January 2019. What was the last thing he did in December in 2018? They passed the biggest reduction of taxes for the super rich.
Yep.
And for corporate America. And they threw a couple of freebies at the middle class.
Which is really only a change in the withholding table.
White tax reductions on the middle class. They are expiring. Whereas the tax deductions given to the rich and the multinational corporations have no expiration date.
No, it's about $8.4 trillion. 83% of the benefits went to the top 1%. And the largest corporations, there were minimal actual tax cuts for what would be what we used to consider the upper middle class, some folks who are not in the top 1%, but maybe in the top 5. The rest of us got a tax increase. Our withholding tables were changed. And that's why, remember in 2017, or I should say, Randall's right, in the beginning of 2018, when people were doing their 2017 taxes, an inordinate number of people found that they owed money because how can I owe money when I got a tax cut? Because you didn't get a tax cut. You got a change in your withholding so that you could bring home a few more bucks every week, but you still owed the money. Now,
At the end, yeah.
Randall is partly correct. I know you're going to get mad that I said that, but hear me out.
No,
Those
not like
So those taxes on the rest of us, not only did the withholding revert back to its original state, and that those very paltry cuts on the upper middle class have expired, taxes for the bottom 99% for the rest, for the next 10 years, are supposed to go up every single year for the next 10. And that was part of the 2017 Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, Trump, Koch brothers tax cuts. Remember, Paul Ryan got a check from the Koch brothers for $1 million when he left his House seat. He got a check for $1 million for all the great work he did for the Kochs. Our taxes are supposed to go up now every year for the next 10. That was part of that bill. And shame on anyone who didn't do anything to change it. Democrats, Republicans, Greens, Independents, Martians, if you're from the Andromeda Galaxy, how dare you not have fixed that by now? So go ahead, sir.
no, you're absolutely right. The Democrats had 2 years to fix it, but they didn't. You're absolutely correct.
They got a hell of a lot done, but they didn't fix that. Louis DeJoy still runs the post office. Trump's nominee at the Social Security Administration still runs that. Over 50% of the Medicare program is now privatized. There's a lot we haven't done. We have not disabled, dismantled, changed, destroyed, packed away in a box and put it away like the end of Indiana Jones into some big warehouse next to the Ark of the Covenant. We have not taken apart the basic tenets of Reaganism. They're still in place. The top marginal tax rate for millionaires, for the top 1%, not even just millionaires, for the top 1% should be 91%. The corporate tax rate should be 54%, where it was post-war, post-New Deal.
Where it was the 2 terms of Republican President Eisenhower.
And even during Nixon, it was still 74%.
And you talked on an earlier show, through back, that John Kennedy, in his one term before he was assassinated, he signed off on a tax reduction for the rich, for the corporations, and he regretted it.
Yep.
He regretted it and regretted it and regretted it. He regretted spending more advisors to Vietnam.
Yep.
That were started by Eisenhower.
I'd say more than regretted it. He supported that. He supported that tax cut originally. It was something he campaigned on. And it was something that he did very, very early in his administration, but he came in a very, very quick time. Randall's right. In a very, very quick time, within 2 years, he had realized it was a bad move and I need to reverse that tax cut. He also expanded the number of advisors in Southeast Asia. Randall's 100% correct that Eisenhower began. Eisenhower and Kennedy famously despised one another. They hated one another, couldn't stand to be in each other's presence. Mr. Eisenhower, by the way, went to the inauguration like presidents that, unlike Trump, like presidents normally do when there's a peaceful transfer of power. But one of the very few times that they did speak on a policy level, and I believe that you can find these tapes online. They're certainly part of the Kennedy Library. As President Kennedy called former President General Eisenhower and said, what do I do with this? This being Vietnam. What do I do here? The military is telling me they want troops and more advisors and more arms. My gut tells me this isn't going to go well. You started this. What do I do here? And Eisenhower told him, get out. Get every last American out of there, and whatever happens there happens. To hell with them. Let them find their own course. If the communists take it, they take it. But get Americans out of there. The Vietnamese had defeated the French, they defeated the Chinese, they defeated Russians, they defeated, colonial powers throughout their history. Why did the United States think they were going to be any different? And one of the very few times, I don't think it was the only time, because I think President Kennedy talked to President Eisenhower during the Cuban Missile Crisis as well, but he asked him about Vietnam and he said, get out, get the Americans out of there, stop it, don't send any more, get out of there. And I don't want to go down a rabbit hole of assassination theories and so on, but Randall's right as he mentions that as a course of history, as a fact of history. He is 100% correct. This took place, and I wonder. President Eisenhower was very vehemently anti-communist, anti-fascist, as was President Kennedy. President Kennedy fought in World War II. Where's that Republican Party now? Where is Eisenhower's Republican Party? Eisenhower himself would not be welcome in this Republican Party. He would be called a communist and a socialist and a fascist. Even though, which shows you, by the way, that most Republicans are not terribly educated to realize that socialism is really on one end of the political scale, with fascism being almost all the way on the other end. But every name in the book would be thrown at a General Eisenhower now. The way Trump used to talk about John McCain, what would he say about a President Eisenhower if he was alive right now? The supreme Allied commander who freed Europe from Nazism. What would a Donald Trump have to say about someone like President Eisenhower? What happened to Eisenhower's Republican Party? I think what happened to it is what Khrushchev said would happen. Eventually, the pursuit of money will become all-encompassing, and the U.S. will tear itself apart from within. And again, I'm paraphrasing. I'm not quoting Khrushchev, but that was his answer. I don't know if, Randall, if you remember that even taking place, that interview, but Khrushchev was he did say that we won't have to fight the Americans because they'll rip themselves apart from within. And I think to a great extent we're seeing that. I hope it's not permanent. I believe that it can be reversed, but I think to a great extent we're seeing that. And I think Mr. Putin thinks that too. We don't have to fight the Americans. They're too busy tearing themselves apart. And he's contributing to that with his social media campaigns, laundering money through different conservative groups here in this country and getting them to Republican office holders that he owns. I think we're seeing that now. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I want to go back to, you were talking earlier about the Cold War, especially the aspect of nuclear Cold War.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I have a different perspective than you do because I'm older. My father, God bless his soul, worked for Boeing for 60 years. He was still working at age 79 when he got his cancer. And he died at age 80, but he was still on the books as an employee at Boeing. He started his career in Wichita, Kansas, with a company called Sterling Aircraft Company.
There you go.
Sterling Aircraft Company made a 2-passenger biplane, and by the end of World War II, actually, it produced 10,000 of the unit. But Sterling Aircraft Company had a contract with the U.S. Army Air Corps to provide these two passenger biplanes to train pilots
Mhm.
for the U.S. Army Air Corps. You know, before there was a U.S. Air Force. And he worked all through World War II. He got called up 3 times. In fact, the last time in 1944, he was on a troop train to head to basic. What's the military training facility in New Jersey?
Fort Dix?
Yeah, he was on a troop training in Wichita, and he got pulled off again by Boeing for the war effort. And I think at the end, I think he had like over 150 women under his team building B-17, the short-range bombers used in the European theater, and the B-29, the long-range bombers used in the Pacific theater during World War II. And then after that, 10,000 people were laid off. And of course, most of them are women by the end of the war, and went back to their farm towns, went back to met their husbands as they came home from the European or the Pacific theaters. But Boeing went down to 450 employees. And he said, some days I'd be in the guard box for 8 hours. Some days I'd be sweeping floors and cleaning bathrooms. Once in a while, we would work on a military plane. And then we had the Berlin
Aircraft.
gate. And that's what really kicked off the Cold War.
Yep. The Berlin airlift.
But the first B-52 rolled off the assembly line the year I was born, 1952. And in 1962, I'll tell you how close we were I'll tell you how close we were to the big one. Yeah. I never knew about any of this until I was an adult, and it was declassified for my father to speak. But he took a crew. There was many crews from Boeing plant going out to every stack base in this country. In every B-52 peak performance operation to deliver nuclear bombs. Because remember, back then, 62, neither side had intercontinental ballistic missiles. That technology was just being proven by Russia putting up Sputnik
Mm-hmm.
and us putting up Echo. Before that, there was only intercontinental ballistic missiles. And that's why Khrushchev and the Soviets placed intercontinental ballistic missiles in Cuba with nuclear weapons, so they could reach continental United States. Now, Wichita was surrounded by Nike bases to protect Boeing as a defense industry making the B-52. And people that don't know what Nike missiles were, they were surface-to-air missiles to take out Russian bombers. Well, 64, all the bases closed down because they were obsolete. Russia wasn't going to use bombers. They were using intercontinental ballistic missiles. We were still using bombers as a fail-safe, but we also had intercontinental ballistic missiles pointed at Russia. In any case, that's how close we were, in my opinion, because of what my father told me as an adult about, that's how we got back here to Delaware County, to Boeing. helicopter. Well, it was Vertol helicopter when Boeing bought it in '62. But there was a air wing of the Air Force 52 Air Force wing at what's the that's the air base up in Bucks County, I think.
Willow Grove?
Willow Grove. Yeah, all the crews had 3 days at each base. Well, his crew is always a day ahead, and they have a day layover before they were sent to the next base. So his crew got operational at Willow Grove on that air wing, or the B-52 squadron there, and they sent him to this little helicopter plant in Morton, Pennsylvania, here in Delaware County. This newly acquired Vertol helicopter. And that's where he worked until he got his cancer and died.
Mm.
But Wichita was a prime military target. Same down here. There was a Nike base right here in the southwestern part of Delaware County, because the number one strike zone was not the city of Philadelphia. It was the Sunoco refinery, because there was 4 major refineries at that time, crude oil refineries along the Delaware River. That was ground zero for Philadelphia, to take out all the oil refineries.
Yeah.
I'm really boring you with history. I apologize.
No, but I wouldn't, it's when you talk about taking out infrastructure in this country, it made me think of the cell network outage that we had Friday, I think that was, or all 3 of the major carriers. And by the way, just the fact that there are only 3 major carriers in this country is criminal in and of itself. Again, it all starts with Reagan and his beginning of the lack of antitrust enforcement. Antitrust laws, folks, are still on the books. They simply are not enforced. And we've had 3 Democratic presidents who have not reinstituted the enforcement of those laws. So both parties are guilty here. And that is a Citizens United. I think, for my money, that's a direct result of Citizens United. For my money not being a pun, but it makes me think, if I would not be shocked. I do not know this. I have not heard any explanation as to why these cell networks failed in as massive a way as they did nationwide. I did not feel it. I had no problems with my cell phone while I was at work on Friday. I don't know anybody in the office who did, but I would not.
It was just major metropolitan areas like New York, LA.
Yeah, we don't count Lehigh Valley.
Well, I'm just saying,
We
just major metropolitan areas: Atlanta, Chicago, Kansas City. It was just major. The major usage of AT&T. And again, you brought up a good point. The last antitrust brought in this country was by President Carter, and that was the best that IT.
Yeah. Would you be surprised to find out in another week, month, 6 months, year, that outage was some sort of cyber attack? I wouldn't shock me in the least.
It wouldn't shock me in the least either. Look how many cyber attacks we had on our banking system.
Yep.
Look how many cyber attacks stealing information we had on major insurance companies, major banks. Yes, I would not be shocked at all.
And I'm not saying that it was, because I have no evidence of that. I'm not saying that I know who did it if it was a cyber attack. My guess would be either the Russians, the Iranians, or the Chinese. Most cyber attacks seem to come from there.
Or North Korea.
But would anybody be surprised if we found out, like I said, a month from now, that it was that the collapse of that cell network in major metropolitan areas was in fact a cyber attack, I wouldn't be surprised in the least.
No, and that's my greatest fear. My greatest fear is that there's a cyber attack on our country's electrification network. And if electricity goes out for days and days, it's total anarchy. And we're back in the 19th century with no electricity.
Right. And we also, the devastation that can be wrought by a nuclear attack on this country, those weapons never need to hit the ground.
No, if you
One exploded high enough in the
if-
air with EMP, yeah.
all you need is a 200 kiloton warhead at high altitude over Kansas. And not just the United States, but a big part of, well, most of the population of Canada is on the very southern border with us. And the same thing Mexico. The northern border all 3 countries would be affected, but we would absolutely be in the 19th century. Okay.
Because the electromagnetic pulse generated by a nuclear explosion would wipe out the entire electrical grid in every electrical device. And let's remember too,
that's why you would want to make it 200 miles above the planet over Kansas in the middle of the country. So that the EMP, the electromagnetic pulse would hit both those and everything in between.
and let's remember there was a report released this week by the Department of Defense in collaboration, as I understand it, in collaboration with the House Intelligence Committee, about a very disturbing report where the American agencies themselves admitted that they are worried about this, that the Russians have developed a pretty potent attack satellite capability, that they have satellites in orbit now that not only could rain weapons down on the planet's surface, but also take out other satellites.
Which the main thing would be to take out all
Spy satellites.
the GPS
Mhm.
and the military satellites. There would be no communication between our armed forces around the world.
Correct. So does that sound like a peaceful nation to you? Does that sound like a stable, confident leader? A leader that handpicks somebody to run against him for show, and then has to get that person taken off the ballot? That doesn't sound stable or secure to me. None of it.
No, that's pure dictatorship.
And here's the wild card that I started to say this at the top of the hour, and then I remembered that I needed to reset my own program, which I should be doing every half hour. And I've been very lazy about it recently and only doing it every hour. Should be doing it every half hour. Here's the interesting wild card in this to me. I think I mentioned this last week. I'm not 100% certain. And if I did, I'll say it again because maybe you missed it. Remember the reason when Joe DiMaggio told everybody why he played so hard? Because maybe there's somebody out there who hasn't seen me yet. Mr. Putin is 71 years old. And while he appears to be in remarkable shape, if you should look at pictures of him from when he was Boris Yeltsin's top deputy.
When he worked for Kate, he
and-
was slim, mean,
and
killing machine.
and watch his evolution of just his body and face. He's way bulkier. if he was playing Major League Baseball, we'd be testing him. Let's put it that way. He is much bulkier. Never seen a man of 71 with so few wrinkles, if any. His face is very much puffier. I suspect he's on quite a range of different things to keep him virile, if you will. And I don't mean that in a sexual context. I mean pumped, healthy. By all reports, he does work out quite a bit. He hikes, he lifts weights. But this gentleman is quite buff for 71. But with that said, that is the wild card in all of this. He is 71. He's not even 61 or 51 or 41. He's 71. Now, he might very well live till he's 171. But usually once you hit the 70s, you know, that's kind of the outer edge still. I think the at least in the United States, the average male lifespan is 74 point something. So he's at the outer edge now. And certainly to the best of my knowledge, and even with all of the so-called Russia experts that are on TV and foreign policy experts, and that's experts ranging from Ambassador McFaul, who was ambassador to Russia during the Obama administration on the left, all the way to John Bolton on the right, the former national security advisor to Trump and a national security official in the George W. Bush administration, who was such a war hawk that even George W. Bush got him out of his administration. Just to kind of put a bit of a thumbprint on how wacky John Bolton can be. But no one seems to have outlined or discussed a successor to Putin, because he's killed everyone close to him. That he has no real close advisors. He has no family that I'm aware of. He has no confidants. He has no friends. He's killed everyone around him to keep himself insulated and in power. And this is the wild card here. So he's 71 years old. Pretty sure it's 71. I actually thought he was older. And then I heard the other day that he is in fact 71. I thought he was 74. That said, he has a massive heart attack tomorrow and passes. What chaos are we looking at in Russia? What power vacuum? Just how massive of a power vacuum is there going to be? Simply because Mr. Putin leaves this plane of existence doesn't mean that we're back to everything is fine, Ukrainian war is over, peace in our time. I'm not so sure that the world wouldn't get even more dangerous, because there is no clear line of succession. There is no clear successor. I suppose there's a chance he's set up Medvedev to take over. Medvedev is younger. But even that, Medvedev simply seems to be a mouthpiece. He doesn't actually do anything by all reports from every type of intelligence agency around the globe. Everything is Putin. He decides everything. He has a cabinet, he has advisors, but apparently listens to none of them. And they're also afraid of him, that he could kill them at any time, especially should they disagree. It's not exactly like they're all sitting around having a frank conversation about, well, I think we should do this. Well, no, I think we should try that, or try this, or no, I think you're wrong about that. None of those conversations take place. So the danger doesn't just end, in my opinion, if Mr. Putin should happen to pass on. I'm not so sure that it doesn't get worse in the short term, because I don't see any clear line of succession. I don't see there will be a massive, massive power vacuum in the most nuclear armed nation on earth. And that's a pretty frightening thing, to be honest with you, but it is what it is. Why don't I give you, what time is it? Because I can't see without my glasses. 4 minutes till the top of the hour, sir. They're all yours. And then we're going to move on to some different topics in our final hour.
I think I'm going to bug out now, Jeff. I probably bored your audience to the max.
Not at all.
And I guess I'm going to have to go in and put Alexa on just so I can hear your program.
Well, you know the deal. Just tell Alexa, play hot101.net, and you're good to go. So I'm not sure what's up with the internet down there, what's up with your Facebook, but at least on my end, everything's
That's
okay.
fine. I can get everybody else. I can get everybody else up.
You got it, my friend.
Pages, groups, everybody else up, but I can't get
Weird.
locked out. I don't know what
Well-
happened. I don't know why, but it really makes me angry.
You know what?
And
That just means that we must be getting popular. Somebody's trying to keep us off. We must be getting there somewhere.
Yep.
That's all I can
That's
say. All right. Thank you, my friend. And as always, and I mean this with all my heart, please take care of yourself down there. You and your wife and your family. Please stay warm, stay healthy, take care of yourselves. Okay.
Yep.
We'll talk soon.
You too.
And don't worry, the round table's coming up. When you get your buddies together, it's all yours, man. I'm giving you the keys.
I know. I know. I'm still working on the full round table.
No worries. All right, you take
Okay.
care of yourself and stay healthy. And I mean that with all my heart. I mean it. You take care of yourself.
Good night.
All right, good night. Let's reset just a little early here. Why not? 7:58, I think, because I was silly enough to take my glasses off again. Yep, 7:58. This is the Kennedy Effect live with you for the 25th of February, 2024, the last Sunday in February. And that's really hard for me to believe. I know I spend an awful lot of time in this program discussing how time flies, but it does, and it's really something. It's really something. It's something. Gosh, it's gonna be March on Friday. It's really something else. And then within 4 weeks, I think I have that right. Within 4 weeks, it's gonna be Easter. Easter's very early this year, by the way. The end of oh my, St. Patty's is on a Sunday. Oh boy. Oh, it could be pretty in several cities around here. Easter's on the final Sunday of March. So really 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5 weeks from now, it's Easter already. My goodness. Well, listen, I'm kind of happy about it because I just want it to get warm. I'm really sick of the cold. I'm so tired of it. I can't stand it. I just want it to get warm. I want spring and summer to come. One of the things that's happened with the fact of global climate change is how the seasons have changed. It is warmer later into the year, but what I think has happened for me, in my personal opinion, in my recollections of recent past years, is that for me, again, from my memory, I suppose that the statistics might prove me wrong, but it seems to me that it's much colder into spring and later into spring than it used to be when I was younger. And I mean genuinely like chillier, not like 60s, into May, but chilly, 30s and 40s throughout April and even into May. But then the fall, 80s, 90s, 100s into September, October. Our pool here in our complex stayed open till mid-October last year because it was hot enough. It seems like the seasons are sort of shifting themselves around a little bit. in the last few years, it's felt to me, and again, the statistics might prove me very, very wrong. Maybe my memory is just completely off, but that it's much, much cooler later into spring on the calendar, and that summer is deeper into fall on the calendar. And I hope this year is, I hope I'm wrong about spring, and I hope I'm right about fall. I hope it gets warm early, and I hope it stays warm late. The older I get, the warmer I want it to be. 802, wherever you might be on Facebook, 120 shares. That other side of information is our home group Facebook page and our home for all things surrounding the Kennedy effect. We are live on my own personal timeline right now. Jeff Kennedy, it's right on the screen for you. Hot101.net, Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and the TuneIn radio app. And as Randall mentioned, you can tell Alexa to play hot101.net. Our name is our web address. If you can get on the net, if you can get on the web, if you can get online, insert proper term here. If you can get online, you can listen to hot101.net anywhere on, above, or below Earth. Period. End of story. If you can get online, you can listen to us, and it's very, very simple. The TCP Media Group from Lancaster and our sponsor, the PayGive app, www.paygive.org. When you buy things, you have to pay for them. Why not give while you do it? There's one more big topic that I would like to get into, and that is the court ruling out of Alabama this week. And there can be no surprise that it came out of Alabama. Alabama State Supreme Court ruling that embryos created during IVF procedures are in fact babies. Sure, this is something that most, if not all of you, have seen. The case originated by a group of parents who had embryos frozen and that were being stored for future implantation into the mothers with the hope of live birth. If you are unfamiliar with IVF, it is the acronym for in vitro fertilization, IVF, where sperm and eggs are artificially put together, where the conception is artificial, if you will. It happens quite literally in a petri dish or test tube, where scientists under a microscope will literally see the cells and put them together to make a fertilized egg. It is allowed to grow to a certain extent, and then it is frozen, normally in liquid nitrogen, and that freezing process stops all biological activities. The embryo no longer grows. It does not have a need for food, energy. It is frozen, suspended animation, if you will. Great scientific science fiction term from the 70s. Suspended animation. But that's a very, very generalized, simple, superficial explanation. And the case originates that several couples, I want to say there was 3 different couples, their embryos were, by the reports that I saw, mistakenly destroyed by the storage facility and accidentally because they had been heated up, and heated up in a way so as to not bring them back to life, but in fact they spoiled and became dead cells. That is the reporting that I saw. Anyone else is welcome to disagree or try to correct me, but my hearing of it was that these embryos were lost accidentally, mistakenly. The couples whose embryos they were pretty ticked off. So they sued the IVF company, or at least the storage company, to which the storage company said, what is it? They're just cells. Here comes the right wing, here comes the white Christian nationalists who decide to make this a second form of a second abortion decision, a second Roe overturning of Roe. And they found the right place to do it because the Alabama Supreme Court, dominated by Republicans, the party formerly known as, dominated by self-identified Christian conservatives. I don't think there's anything Christian about them. The Chief Justice, of course, writing in his opinion, Bible quotes about how these parents who did IVF would be judged by God, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what the Alabama State Supreme Court basically did is declare that these embryos are babies, and that if they are lost, destroyed, spoiled, thrown away, used for research, it's tantamount to murder. That these are babies and they have rights. That a collection of cells that you would need a microscope to see is a baby, and therefore entitled to certain quote unquote inalienable human rights, among which is the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And while there's 1,000 different ways probably to think about this and talk about it, here's a couple that come to my mind. One, this decision was so ill-conceived that even Donald Trump, who has, no pun intended, trumpeted all across this country that I'm the president that killed Roe. I'm the one that gave you the Supreme Court that took away and overturned Roe versus Wade. That even Donald Trump said on Friday, in fact, I think Friday was a damn busy day, that this decision was wrong. And he was very, very clear about it. Not that he just happened to disagree with it, but that it was flat out incorrect. That IVF was a valuable, necessary, appropriate option for couples across the country who want to have children and cannot by any other method. Even Trump said that. Here's the other disturbing thing. The Alabama Supreme, part of the original Roe decision, Supreme Court discussed the idea of viability. Can a baby live outside its mother's womb? And at what point throughout the gestation period can that baby survive outside the womb? Is it a day, a week, a month, 3 months, 6 months? When is that fundamental change that these two cells, a sperm cell and an egg cell, can now survive outside the womb. Thus, the beginning of the concept of viability. When can a baby survive outside the mother's womb and live and grow into a normal child, adult, so on? Viability, the idea of viability. The Alabama Supreme Court seems to have ignored the idea of viability entirely. These embryos, and it might even be a stretch to even call them embryos. You're talking about a small group of cells, again, that you would still need a microscope to see. Is that frozen embryo viable? Or does it need its mother's womb to continue to survive? Frozen, absolutely nothing happens. All biological activity is stopped. Where does viability come in? The Alabama Supreme Court seems to have ignored that decision entirely. Or that component of the decision. They have ignored the idea of viability. I believe this case will go to the United States Supreme Court, where Justices Alito and Thomas eagerly await it. They were quoted this week as saying that. They see this as an opportunity to make IVF illegal. And it will leave tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of couples without an option to have children. And not just rich white couples, by the way. Justice Thomas talked this week about hoping to have the opportunity to hear a case about the legalization of contraception for women. He wants that case back in front of the Supreme Court so that can be reviewed and eventually overturned. The Dobbs decision overturning Roe versus Wade was not an end. It was a beginning. So what's next? Thomas and Alito have told you what's next. IVF, contraception. They have both mentioned that they would gladly review same-sex marriage. I suspect after Mr. Thomas either dies or leaves the bench, you'll start to talk about interracial marriage. The only reason he doesn't want to hear a case on interracial marriage now is because he's in one. This court has taken it upon itself to eliminate rights. The Dobbs decision was the first time in the history of this country where the Supreme Court removed a precedented legal right, constitutional right to a group of people in this country. There are times in our history where the Supreme Court has upheld a lack of rights when the Supreme Court ruled that slaves were not people, or that they could be counted as 3/5 of a person for purposes of the census, or that they were property, that separate but was not that segregation was legal. So there have been times in this country where the Supreme Court has upheld a lack of rights for a constituency population within our country. Dobbs was the first time they took back rights. So that women had this established constitutional right to determine if and or when they gave birth. And 50 years that stood until this court took it away. And now they want to review contraception, IVF, same-sex marriage. They've taken away the idea that marginalized communities for centuries, with their decision about minority admissions into colleges, the former political party known as the Republicans used to bitch a lot about activist courts. Oh, the courts are taking these things upon themselves to make law. What's funny, when a conservative court, stacked, rigged conservative court, bought and paid for conservative court, does what the right wants, then suddenly they're not activist judges. Only when the decision goes against them do we bitch about the courts. When they get what they want, then it's okay. I want to mention this before we're going to end at 8:30. You all can jump over to the pre-show for the Villain's View. And because I have massive heartburn and I'm tired and I'm getting up at 5 in the morning to go to work. And I'm on call this week, so it'll be just a wonderful week, I'm sure, of late night working and answering the phone 24/7 and things like that. But something else that I did want to mention. In just legal judgments alone, Mr. Trump now owes over $500 million. Now, he has told people in the past that he is worth double-digit billions of dollars. There appears to be no truth to that whatsoever. His campaign has leaked that they are now worried that they can even conduct a campaign because $2 out of every $3 coming in is now going to pay his legal bills. He has started a GoFundMe, literally started a GoFundMe to pay the legal judgments against him. He has gotten rid of the head of the Republican National Committee, filled the Republican National Committee Executive Committee with his own people who have decided and have said in public, including his own daughter-in-law, that all the money coming into the Republican National Convention should now be Trump's, to either use on the campaign or to pay his legal bills. I suppose if you're a congressional candidate somewhere in this country running under the Republican banner, you're just pretty well screwed. The RNC is not going to help you with that. If you're running for governor somewhere, the RNC is not going to help you with that. Does a billionaire really have to beg people for money? Beg them? A lot of people made a lot of fun of the Trump sneakers that came out this week. The ridiculously gaudy, high-topped gold sneakers with a big T and an American flag on it. I always love how the right loves to wrap themselves in the American flag, and it's actually law that the American flag is not supposed to be used on commercial products, but they're happy to do it every time you turn around if they can make a buck on it. And then, of course, they don't bitch about that, do they? But even that put aside, if you go to the website to buy Trump sneakers, It's a little bit of fine print there. And I have to give Chris Hayes credit for this, for mentioning this. It says they cannot tell you when or if sneakers will ever ship. Those pair of sneakers that he was holding might be the only pair on earth. So you can go to the website and you can order them. They're $500. They might be 400, like $399 or $499, something like that. But the website will tell you, if you place your order, that there is no guarantee as to when or if the sneakers will ever ship. Now, last time I bought something, even online, there was a guaranteed ship date. When I bought something at a store, I walked out with it. When I go to a restaurant to eat, the food better come to me. In fact, I usually get the food before I pay. But just like every great sideshow hustler selling snake oil that cured everything off the back of a covered wagon, here is this grifter, this thief, this charlatan, this fake, saying, buy my sneakers. If you support me politically, buy my sneakers. Show everyone how much you support me. Oh, by the way, I can't tell you when they're going to ship. Can't even tell you if they are going to ship. Sounds a lot like Trump University to me. Pay for an education and then never get one. Donate to my charity for veterans, but I don't give them any of the money. It's pretty damn simple. Call yourself a brilliant businessman when you can sucker millions of people into giving you money. This is the part of the cult of personality of Trump that I do not understand. Is that how have this many people, when he says he loves the uneducated, no shit, he sure does. How has 40% of the American people, I think it's, well, personally, I think it's a direct line from Reaganism and the destruction, the willful, intentional destruction of the public education system in this country. That said, how has 40% of the American people decided that this man is somehow delivered by God, that he is a great businessman, and that he's what this country needs, when all he has done is steal and borrow and beg? He has built nothing. He has created nothing. He puts his name on things. How he has somehow built this celebrity. He is think of it as a cardboard box. He's the biggest cardboard box, and he shows up on your doorstep wrapped in the best wrapping paper with the biggest bow. And you think you're getting this huge, amazing gift, and you rip it apart, and the box is empty. And you thought it was a gift for you, and then you realized you paid for it. These buildings are built on tissue paper. They're built on myth. They're built on hype. They're built by other companies, and then he puts his name on them. And then doesn't pay the people who built the building. Those of us in New Jersey and New York knew he was this way for 30 years before he unleashed his tirade on the rest of this country. Always remember what Trump said in 2016 or 2015 into 2016. Are you going to run for president, Mr. Trump? And if you do run, what party would you run under? Well, I'm not sure yet that I'm going to run, but if I run, I have to run as a Republican. Why? Because I can't fool the Democrats, but I can fool the Republicans. Not only would I win their nomination, I'll be the first man in history to make money being president. Boy, he was right. We don't like to say that Trump was right a lot. He was right about that. 3 minutes left of the program. George, is there anything, sir, that you would like to mention before we say good night and hand it over to the villain's view? Questions, comments, statements, beat me up, don't beat me up. I don't know. Have at it.
No, I'm not going to beat you up. Something I put in the chat, in our chat here, I said, we don't need to make America great again because America was always great. We just need leaders to match. And that, that was my statement. So,
Well, again, remember what Jefferson said. To form a more perfect union, a more perfect union.
mm-hmm.
Conceding the fact that we are not and probably would never be perfect, but that we should strive for it.
Yes.
And boy, when a man like that can be president and become this close to being president again, oof, if that doesn't show that we're not perfect.
Yeah. It's scary.
It is. And I have to be honest with you, with everybody, that if it was just policy differences, then I don't think I'd be as exercised about this as I am. I think policy differences are good. They're healthy. I think a functioning, healthy democracy demands policy differences. These are not policy differences. What's left, the group of sheep labeling themselves as Republicans, and not just the voters, but the office holders too, stand for nothing. And I know that that's become a bit of a throwaway line. Ask Marjorie Taylor Greene what she stands for. And you can find tape of her doing tape, just showed how old I was there. You can find video of her saying, what do you think about this issue or that issue? Or what is your position on this or this or this? And not every time, to be fair, not every time, but a good damn number of them. I can tell you what I don't want to see. I can tell you what these socialist, communist, child grooming Democrats want to stand for. What do you stand for? She can't tell you that.
She stands for clicks and shares. That's about it.
I think that's actually quite well said. It sounds flippant, but it's actually quite true. What does Lauren Boebert actually stand for? What does Jim Jordan actually stand for? What does Ted Cruz, Rick Scott, Marco Rubio, Marco Rubio has raised his head again out of the Florida swamps the last couple of weeks. Josh Hawley, who has been frighteningly quiet since September 6th or since January 6th, when he encouraged the rioters outside the Capitol and then ran from them because they were going to kill him the same way they were going to kill everybody else. What do these people stand for? What does Lindsey Graham stand for? Other than trying to make sure that he's not outed. One of the worst kept secrets in DC is that Mr. Graham is gay. I couldn't care less if he was. But apparently he cares a lot. Nobody knows 1,000% if it's true. Some people will say it's absolutely true. It's one of the worst kept secrets in DC. But of course, Mr. Graham has never confirmed that. Can't find any of his former or current partners or partner. But one of the worst kept secrets in DC is that he operates to keep that secret. But what does he stand for? Other than self-protection? What do these folks actually? Mike Lee in Utah is another one. John Kennedy of Louisiana.
The other line I had was, it's not thoughts and prayers, it's clicks and shares.
Yeah.
So.
What do these folks actually stand for? You can disagree with me, with George, with Franz. You can disagree with the Democratic Party about the things that we stand for. And these are worthwhile, substantive, necessary discussions to have in a functioning democracy. We think the policy decision for this issue is this. And then the party opposite stands up and says, we don't agree with that. We think the solution is this. That doesn't happen in our country anymore. The Democratic leader in the House of Representatives is Congressman Hakeem Jeffries from New York City. If he stands up and says that the sky is blue and the grass is green, the Republican majority, except for possibly 3 or 4 members that are retiring anyway, will stand and tell him he's wrong. And tell him that he's a child groomer and whisper the N-word under their breaths. This isn't a political party anymore. And that's what makes it hard. Negotiations with a mob mentality very rarely bear fruit. It's hard to negotiate with a rioting mob on the streets. When they're throwing rocks, breaking windows, looting stores, setting fires, and that could be any country on earth. It could be the pink vest riots in France. It could be riots across Africa happening right now, as several different former colonies who were left abandoned by the colonial powers to fend for themselves and left high and dry, as democratic, hopeful protests and riots take place across Africa. It's very difficult to negotiate with a mob. It's what we have on the right side in the country now is a mob. It's a mob mentality fueled by anger and hate, and so badly ill-informed that they don't even think that grass is green, the sky is blue, and the earth is round. And therein really lies the difficulty. How do you negotiate with that? How do you deal with that? One thing that Randall said that I disagree with. He actually kind of contradicted himself a couple statements later, but I don't agree on fully, not fully. 90+% of NRA members believe there should be universal background checks, mandatory gun locks, limit the size of magazines, clips for automatic weapons, semi-automatic weapons. 70-something% of them believe that the AR-15 should be banned. 67% of the country believes the rich should pay more taxes. There's Republicans in that group. They believe the community college at a minimum should be free. The majority of Americans believe student debt should be wiped out. 54% of Americans believe we should have universal health care, Medicare for all, that the private for-profit health insurance industry should be dismantled. There are things that we are not 50-50 on. But when the other side is a mob that stands for nothing other than the money they can gain from billionaires for destroying the system, while those same billionaires get tax cuts from that same system, where does that leave us? And I tell you the same thing every week. My party is not perfect. It is not. We have failed to destroy Reaganism the same way Reagan himself told us in public he wanted to destroy the New Deal. We failed to codify Roe. We have failed to stop the privatization of Medicare. We have failed to expand Social Security by eliminating the cap. But at the same time, we have succeeded a great deal. $400+ billion for a green energy system. $1.5 trillion for infrastructure. Freeing 500,000 students from their debt. Another 150,000 just this week. We capped the cost of insulin at $35. Democrats did that. Democrats did that. And Americans together, black, white, brown, male, female, non-binary, in states like Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, Iowa, codified abortion rights in their state's constitutions. Americans did that. We can still do things. Democrats have delivered. Why would we go backward? Why would we stop? Why would we change our minds to think that we do not deserve nice things? An old funny joke. This is why we can't have nice things. Why do we think that we can't have nice things? We can. We simply have to have the strength, the wherewithal, the guts to have those things. We can. We can. I refuse to believe any differently. We can. We must have the strength. And I believe that we can do these things. One I have not dropped on you in quite a while. Remember President Kennedy's speech about going to the moon. We choose to go to the moon and do the other things. President Kennedy's moon speech is not just about the moon. It's about and do the other things. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard. We are the country of hard things. We do the hard things. We won 2 world wars. We put a man on the moon. We built villages and schools and water systems for countries and poor villages all over the planet through the Peace Corps. We cured diseases. That's us. That's who we are. We haven't been for a while, but we can be. We can be. I have no doubt. None. No doubt that we can do that again. But we need another side to help us do it. We need another side, another party, if you will, to not just stand there and say, no, 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 no. That whatever it is that we stand for, they stand against it. I stand, it's 12 noon, I stand for lunch. Nope, we're against lunch. It's spring. I'd like to congratulate the Congressional Capitol landscapers for the beautiful green grass. Nope, grass isn't green. George will probably remember this reference. Well, tell me, Captain, how many lights do you see? There are 4 lights. That's what we're dealing with.
I'm proud of you. You have referenced Trek again.
Thank you.
Good man.
And that's not to end on a bad note, but we have to know where we are. The first step to solving a problem is realizing you have one. That's about all the damage that we can do for this week. For everyone at TCP, Marquise, Whitney, Andrew, and Taekwon, for everyone at our sponsor, the PayGive app, www.paygive.org, for everyone at hot101.net, DJ Lex, DJ Earl, and the entire roster of incredibly talented DJs at hot101.net. For France, for April Riddick, Commissioner, Lee High Commissioner, April Riddick, for George and Lynn Dare, for Kristen, and for Daisy the dog and Guy the cat downstairs, I'm Jeff Kennedy. It's all we can do for this week. We will see you next week. Maybe we'll have a guest. Maybe we won't. But one way or another, we will be here, and we want you to be here with us. We want you to take part in the program. So as you share the program, as you talk about the program, please encourage your friends, family, fellow listeners. Call, comment, questions. It's your program. I'm not here to lecture. I'm here to talk with you. That's as much as we can do for 1 week, as I mentioned. That's as much as we can do for 1 week until next week, which is March. It was the 3rd. Until March 3rd. I tried to do 25 and 7, but that would be wrong. That would be 32, and there are not 32 days in February. So it would be March 3rd. for all of us here, thank you so much for being with us. Please take care of yourselves and each other. For those of you on hot101.net and at our home group Facebook page, that side of information. And for hot101.net, both the group and page on Facebook, The Villain's View starts right now. We'll see you next week.